All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of The Potential Project. I'm your host, Sean Calhoun, and if you're here, it's because you're ready to reduce stress, burn stubborn fat, and get your body working with you instead of against you. On this podcast, we're all about simple, no BS strategies for fitness, nutrition, and lifestyle. This way, you can feel strong, confident, and in control. I'll give you the tools, mindset shifts, and habits to help you look and feel your best without spending hours in the gym or stressing over every single meal. Now, let's get into it. All right, welcome back, guys. And I am super excited to talk about this week's topic because it's going to be the basis of what we cover in the future, right? I know a lot of times I've had guests on, I've talked about different things about your mindset, goal setting, how to get better in your health and fitness. But really, we're not changing the potential project, but what we're going to do is focus a lot of our time, effort, and energy on helping people optimize their health and talking about that in a specific way. Now, I focus my attention on helping women get, better results with their fitness, with their health, burning fat, boosting their energy, and what that encompasses, right? So we're going to target a lot of the topics and the thought processes that go along with the podcast towards that. So not that we're not going to have guests on or talk about other things, they all kind of come into play with pursuing your higher potential. But today specifically, I want to talk about some foundational stuff that comes up a lot in my life, what I deal with clients, and how we're going to approach that going forward. So why you're stuck and how to fix it. Most likely the conversation has come up in your head or in person that you are eating properly, you are exercising, you are going to get your physicals done at the doctor, right? Like you're doing all of the things that you've been told or that you've seen online and you still feel like crap or it's not working. And that's a problem, right? So I've dedicated realistically my life to figuring that out. I have put everything on the line to go and learn what's necessary to be able to help you and to understand that I am always learning and that I'm always going to want to be advancing my knowledge and my experience to be able to help these problems. A woman who says, I want to feel my best, I want to look my best, and I want to, feel myself again, but I can't right now because I don't know. I don't know why I can't feel that way. I mean, like I said, I'm exercising, I'm dieting, I've tried all the workout plans, all the diets. I've been to my doctors and they're saying your results look fine. I see this as a problem. And this happens way too many times. And I've talked to way too many women that feel the same way. So at first, my thought was, hey, let me see who's in the area. Let me see who I can connect with to help our members and clients out here so that they can finally feel themselves again and finally make some progress. I've coached a lot of women, personal training in the group setting, and they'll come to me and they're like, nothing, the scale isn't budging, my clothes aren't changing. And that's not everybody. There's a lot of people who get great results, but there's some people who I know are putting in the work and it's not helping them. So my first thought was, let me go find someone. And then after, talking to a bunch of people and seeing who was available, I didn't quite feel comfortable, sending our people, my clients, to those people. So I said, why not just do it myself? So I've spent the last year basically in school studying, getting the proper knowledge and certifications so that I can then take a step in and start to help. So what's the problem here? What is the overall arching problem that I see in a lot of these women and the conversations that I have? It's the problem that, again, they're doing everything right, but not seeing results. So the problem with this is we're following, generic programs, we're calorie counting, we're doing high intensity workouts, we're doing all the things that we think are going to work, but why aren't they working? Well, let's break it down. Generic programming. We've all understood that we are an individual, right? So if we're following some just generic, plan that like a diet plan or some type of series of, exercises that you're doing and it's not specific to you, you're going to have a hard time seeing the best results. So what works for me, like what I can eat, might not be right for you. What I eat and the protocols that I do for myself and my best health might actually harm you, might actually make your symptoms feel worse. So we have to understand that the idea that we all are an individual and we have bio-individuality, which means not only are you not the same as anyone else, you're not the same as you were in the past. We're always changing and adapting and growing or having symptoms create us to not grow. So we have to understand that we're changing, and we need our program and our life and our habits and our mindset to reflect that, right? Calorie counting is tough because we're thinking about calories in versus calories out. Yes, there is the law of thermodynamics where if we overconsume calories, then we're burning, we're going to put on weight. And if we underconsume calories, then we're burning, we are going to lose weight. Theoretically, that holds a lot of weight, but we have to realize when we're talking about women's health, we're talking about the fact that you have a menstrual cycle, you have hormones that are changing. If you're in the perimenopausal or menopausal phase of your life, we have hormones that are coming to a complete halt, right? Like estrogen's dropping a lot, progesterone is dropping a lot, and there is a transitional phase that does have a role in how our body operates and how it utilizes energy and how it utilizes the food that we're consuming. So if we're just following the model of calories in versus calories out, we are going to have a lot of trouble, and we might run into some plateaus or some symptoms getting worse, and we're not understanding why we aren't able to lose the weight or burn the fat. And then another one is that we get into this trip of like the higher the intensity or the harder the workout, the better. Now, a lot of the data that's been, taken is on men, right? When it comes to things like intermittent fasting, cold plunging, certain workouts, that data has been collected on a group of men, like an average group of men. Now, as a woman, they've categorized you a lot of times, unfortunately, as a small man. Like, let's say the data was taken on men that are 5'9" to 6 foot and weigh like 185 pounds. And they did the research on those men. And then you are a 150 pound or 125 pound woman. They just basically said, well, that's a small man. How can we adjust the data to fit you? And that's simply not true, because as men, we don't have the same menstrual cycle and we have similar hormones, but they don't operate the same way in our body as they do you. And then especially, again, as we go through the transitional phase of, perimenopause and menopause, men don't experience that. So how could we ever expect to take what has worked or not worked for men and just apply it to women? It doesn't work that way. And there's some small changes that you need to take into consideration as a woman to better optimize your results and the way that you go about things. So that is the big problem, is the fact that there's no one-size-fits-all program. You're always changing. What works for one person could make your symptoms and situation worse, and you are not a small man. You are a female with totally different systems. So we need to optimize for that in order to get results, right? So what's the solution? Let me pause for a second because I got my coffee here and I don't like to drink it when it gets cold. So I'm going to sip my coffee. But we want to know what we can do about this, right? And that is what I have spent the last almost year researching and learning about. The first part of it starts with getting the right data, right? We need to understand what our health markers are beyond blood work. I know a lot of us go for a yearly checkup or twice a year and we get our normal blood work done, but we need to look at our hormones, we need to look at inflammation, we need to look at gut health, food sensitivities. There's a lot of things that come into play and can affect our overall system, right? Because in general, when it comes to our health, if you go to the doctor and you say, well, I have a stomach problem, bloating, indigestion, constipation, diarrhea, what have you, they're going to test you for that. And if they find a marker that is out of range, they're either going to put you on medication or suggest some type of surgery to go and get rid of the problem. The issue with that is your gut having problems can be the cause and the effect of systems other than that are having problems, like liver congestion, like your adrenal glands not, working properly and producing the right amount of hormones that are supposed to go out on your, your normal cycle. So there's a ton of things that could be happening within your body systems that are causing you to have the symptom of bloating, of constipation, of diarrhea, whatever it is. So that siloed approach of you have a headache, let's give you headache medication, no longer works, because you're not actually healing the problem at the root cause, and you're just causing yourself to either stay on medication forever or cause other problems because you're just masking what's actually going on. So we need to get the blood work done. We need to get other panels done that are going to see the full picture, right? We need to, like I said, we need to be able to see our hormone levels, inflammation, food sensitivities, gut health. We need to see the whole gambit so that we can try to paint the picture of what's happening with you, the individual. We need to track metrics like sleep, like stress levels, like energy levels, so that we can understand how your body is responding to perceived stress and to life in general, right? And the fact that the symptoms that you're experiencing are just signals. Like I said before, let's say you have bloating every time that you eat. That is not a random occurrence. That is a signal that something is off. And I want to point out that there are no normal symptoms, right? Like if you go to someone and say like I have headaches, and it's just like, oh, that's normal for whatever, someone your age, or that's normal to have them once a month. No, it's not. Any symptom that you're having is not a normal symptom, is not a normal thing. Your body is meant to run properly. It's meant to feel good. It's meant to have energy. It's meant to, digest food properly. It's meant to run all of its processes with ease. And if there's an obstruction to that and you have a symptom because of it, that is a problem. And I'm not saying this to try to make things like, oh my God, you should be scared, but we should take a look at that in the whole picture and how we can build up our health. So let me try to summarize what I'm saying here. There are stressors on your body that are coming from a bunch of different things, from the food that you're eating, from your perceived stress of the environment, from toxins that you're rubbing on your body, from the water you're drinking, a ton of stuff. That is causing symptoms and problems downstream that affect, the way your lungs function, the way your liver functions, the way your digestion functions. And after a while, if we don't keep up with that, it's going to cause symptoms. So what I mean is we need to find the data that gives us the markers to look at in all of these different areas and then paint the picture based on you, right? So let's say we're experiencing these symptoms. We run the proper diagnosis, we get the data, and then we're able to say, you know what? You've been sleeping on a terrible mattress. You have a young child who's keeping you up and you're not getting good sleep. And also, you've been strapped for money because you haven't got the promotion that you were looking for at work. These are all things that affect your overall health. But if we were to just get a regular lab done, our blood work, it's not going to take that into consideration. So the first step is to get the right data, get all the different labs and the correlating information about you, the person, so that we can map out exactly how to take that approach forward and to make your adjustment, right? So that brings me to my next point, is that we need to correlate this data to you, the individual. So every person's body reacts differently. So like I said, if you're taking a certain supplement or eating a certain food and you feel a certain way, we need to acknowledge that. Like if I eat dairy and I get an upset stomach, I need to know that my body doesn't really agree with that. Maybe yours does, and that's okay. So understanding how our body reacts to exercise, to certain foods, to the stressors at work and in life, that gives you your baseline, and that gives you an idea of what steps you can take to make, adjustments going forward. And secondly, I talked about this a couple minutes ago about data and lab testing. Hey, hope you're loving the episode so far. Thanks for spending some time with me. I got a quick favor to ask. Make sure you're subscribed to the podcast, because that's how I know you're getting value from the show. And this way, you never miss an episode. All right, now back to the show. There's a lot of, people who go to their normal doctors and they get labs done. And the issue with this is that a lot of times they'll say, hey, my labs look normal, or they were in range, but they still feel terrible. They have low fatigue, they have bloating, they have headaches, they have all these different symptoms that they're experiencing, but yet their doctor told them that their labs look fine. Now, there's a problem with this, because, when you go get your labs done, they're testing your blood, they're doing a metabolic panel, they're probably testing your cholesterol and different things like that, and then they say you're in range. Well, the one thing about the range is this range is very large, and it's based on a data set of all these people who are, maybe ill, not feeling well, and it's a large range. So if you fall within that, you got to realize, the top of the range is people who don't feel really well. So they're pushing out the range of numbers that you could even fall within. Whereas if you went off of a data set that was a bunch of healthy people, it might be smaller and you might be way out of that range. So understand that the general population data range that you're getting these labs drawn on are larger than what they need to be. The second thing is, when you're getting your blood drawn, a lot of these tests aren't able to capture the free test, the free hormones that we actually need to view. So for example, let's say we're testing your thyroid, your TSH or your T4 or your T3. These are your thyroid hormones, right? Whereas the conventional lab tests are just going to test your levels of TSH, let's say, right? That's your thyroid stimulating hormone. But what we really need to look at is your free TSH, right? Which is the bioavailable level of your hormone that actually goes and triggers a response in your body and is enabling these systems to work. So if we're not able to look at the free version of the hormone, the free TSH or the free T4, free T3, then we're not able to actually get a good picture at what's happening with your health. So number one, you're in a data range that's so large that even if you're within the range, you might not really be feeling that good, but you're in range, so they just deem you as okay. And then secondly, the numbers that they're reading are not the actual free hormone levels that have the effect that we need to look at in the body. So that's the issue with the blood tests and the conventional labs that we get done at our doctors. And I'm not saying there's not a lot of great things that we can look at. We can. But if you get those labs done and then you're just kind of shooed away to say, hey, this looks fine, you look normal, it's just your age, that's why. It's because the labs aren't taking a detailed enough approach into what's actually going on in your body. Then there's the data of food. Like I said, like I could eat something that is totally fine, right? I feel great. It's healthy food, right? Think about whole, nutritious food. But for you, that might make you tired. That might have a systemic effect. You might have an allergic response or a sensitivity to that food. Even though it's a healthy food, you might have an adverse effect to it. That causes inflammation, that causes your digestion to slow down, that causes a whole bunch of different things and could cause symptoms for you down the road, right? Where you might be following this plan that I followed, right? It's like, hey, Sean, lost weight, he put on muscle, he looks great because he ate these things and he did this program, so you try it. And then it doesn't work as well. Well, I mean, even though you're eating healthy and exercising, those foods might be poison to you. They might have an adverse effect on your system, and that might not allow you to get the results that the other person did in that program. So that's why it's very important to get the data that is individualized to you, right? So we understand that, first of all, the symptoms that we're experiencing are not normal, right? Secondly, we're understanding that you are an individual and you need to get the right data. I keep saying data and data. I don't even know which way I like to say it. Data for you, the individual, whether it's the food you should be eating, the hormone levels that you're at, and then also correlating that to you, the person. That's the third thing that happens that gets missed, right? So a lot of times you'll get your blood work done and we're just looking at this number. Let's say it's your thyroid, right? Your thyroid is in range, you're good to go. But we don't correlate that to you, the individual. So let's say you have, again, like a dysregulated cortisol, right? Like your cortisol is thrown off, you're having, fatigue, low energy, something's wrong, right? But you get your, results back and your cortisol seems to be in range. So they just deem it as you're getting older or it's just the transition in your life. But that's not true because we need to look at the fact of, let's say the example that I said before. Let's say you've got a baby, right? And that's keeping you up from sleeping, which is throwing off your circadian rhythm. And you've got a stressful job and that's causing you to, have your heart rate elevated throughout the day and that's causing a strain on you there. And then on top of it, you're following this diet plan that has you eating, a bunch of dairy and a bunch of other things that are causing an inflammatory response in your body. But we didn't even talk about any of that because all we did was get your lab done. We looked at your levels and you were in range. But that doesn't tell us anything. That just tells us, are we in range or are we not? And what happens is you start treating the paper, and then, like I said, your end result is either you get put on a medication, you have a surgery, or you get told that you're fine. And that's not fair because you still feel a certain way. So what's understandable and what needs to happen is we need to look at the results of the labs, and we need to be able to say, okay, tell me about you, the person. What's going on? And not that it needs to be a therapy session, but the person correlating the labs needs to look at you and understand, hey, they're a single parent. Maybe they're a single mother with 3 kids, 2 jobs, and they're working their butt off. That has an effect on your health, even though the paper says one thing. Do you know what I mean? Like, everyone's life is different. Everyone's level of perceived stress is different. If we don't understand that, we won't be able to take the proper steps to move forward and help the problem. So that brings me to my next point, is the fact of having a coach, right? Having guidance through this process is important, because if you were to just say, okay, I know my levels, I got them from the doctor, they say everything looks fine, and I'm just going to guess on certain things that I need to do. So let's say you're listening to your body and you're trying certain foods, and you can kind of feel when one doesn't feel right, so you try to take it out, and you're guessing and checking, and all of that can work if you become very intuitive. But the point is why would you guess when you can test and be coached? So with the proper reporting and the proper data that we have, this person who is your coach and who's been through the process with other people can guide you on the best path forward, right? They've sat with you, they understand you, the individual, they understand your numbers, and they can tell you the steps to take that are going to get you to from where you're at to feeling better in the fastest way possible. And the other reason why coaching is great is because they can work with you and make course corrections. So it's like, all right, we're going to adjust the certain foods that we're eating because you have some sensitivities here. We're going to adjust your workout routine because you're stressing yourself out in the morning, certain things. And then you give them feedback on how you're feeling, and you can make adjustments along the way. Because like I said, you are an individual, and it's not some cookie cutter program where it's like, do these steps and you'll be great. So having a proper coach is amazing in the fact that it's customized to you and it's course corrected as you go, right? Then there's the fact of accountability, right? When left to our own devices, we, fall short a lot of times, right? We want to do certain things. We want to pick up a workout routine. We want to make the adjustments to what we're eating at dinner. We want to improve our life, but it's just in our head. We're not telling it to anyone. We're just thinking about it. And if we don't do it, oh well, we'll try it again the next day. And then we feel this sense of regret and remorse on a daily basis. Whereas if we have someone else we're working with, then we're holding our accountability to them, where it's like, I don't want to let them down. They set out the plan for me. If I don't do it, then I'm the one falling short, right? It's not their health that's not improving, it's mine. So it's kind of that extra level of accountability and guidance and support that's needed to actually make the change happen, right? So the other thing with a coach is, if they're experienced enough, they can help you make the small adjustments and tweaks in your nutrition and your recovery that lead to big breakthroughs. Rather than saying, okay, here's what's wrong, this is where you need to be. It's like, let's coach you through it to take steps to get you to that point. So for example, if you walk 2,000 steps a day and they're like, hey, it would probably be beneficial for you to walk 10,000, instead of just telling you that, they actually talk to you and work out your schedule and what's your mindset like, when do you have breaks, help you break some limiting beliefs, help you adjust your schedule, and now all of a sudden you're doing 5,000 steps a day, and then you build up to 10,000, right? So that's the power of having a coach. So just to summarize, the points that I'm trying to make is that you feel a certain way, you have symptoms, you have a goal that you're trying to reach that you're not able to reach it, and you've been trying all these diets, all these workout plans, all these things that you see online, but nothing's working. And then you went to your doctor and you got your labs done and everything feels fine. But the reality of it all is you're an individual, symptoms are not normal, and you're always changing. So we need to take the approach of getting the right data, right? Running certain labs, doing certain reports, and taking certain documentation so that we know exactly where we are as a person, and we can look at some of those stressors that are kind of hidden in our body and not so white and black on a piece of paper. Then we can take the approach of having a coach run us through a program, guide us, and make course corrections, and have the expert knowledge to correlate what your paper is saying, what your data is saying, to you, the person. Until that happens, we are going to have some trouble with making the proper steps forward. Yes, of course, you can make progress doing it all on your own, and certain programs might work for you because it just so happened that lined up with what your body needs. But if you're struggling, if you've been trying a bunch of different programs, just know you're not broken. You have maybe food sensitivities. You maybe have hormonal imbalances. We have a whole lot of things that can be going on with our body that, until we uncover those things and start to rebuild our health, it's going to be really, really hard to make change. So I empower you to take that next step. Continue listening to this show because we're going to be talking a lot about that on an individual basis, right? On certain aspects of what I was talking about. This was more of like an umbrella on what I see as a lot of the problems. We're going to be talking about specific ways that you can improve, specific mindsets to have, and specific protocols that do help on a fundamental level. So do your due diligence. Keep listening to shows like this. Reach out to me if you have any questions, and continue to not settle, right? If you feel like something is off and your numbers look fine, please reach out to me. I am now certified to do all these things. Like I said, I've been working for a little over a year on learning the process and the skills and the knowledge to be able to run these labs, these functional labs, be able to assess them and correlate them to you as the person and help coach you through a program to better health, right? I think this is a very exciting time in my life and for you guys because now I feel like I can help be the answer rather than just tell you to work out more, eat less. Like that was never my goal in the first place, but I hate when I see that and I hear that because there's a lot more complexity to your health than simply working out more, eating less, or calories in versus calories out. It's time to get down to the nitty gritty. It's time to see you as an individual and see what's going on within your body and make the proper change. So I will see you guys next time. Be sure to share the show if you got any value from this. Hey, thanks for spending some time with me on today's episode. I hope you got a ton of value from it. If we're not connected on Instagram yet, let's change that. Hit me up at Sean Calhoun _. That's SEAN Calhoun _. Shoot me a DM. Let me know what you think of the show or if you got any questions about how to level up your health. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you on the next episode.